The 2021 NBA Finals have begun. It should be a time for ESPN to shine, as they have the exclusive rights to the championship. However, they're now stuck where they don't want to be, which is in the middle of a culture war that is overshadowing the game, as their two hosts, Rachel Nichols and Maria Taylor, are unable to work together. Nichols has been pulled off the NBA championship broadcast and has made a public apology to Taylor. Taylor's future at ESPN also remains unclear, as her contract ends midway through the NBA final, and it's unclear if ESPN will extend her or even if she wants to come back to ESPN. This video will give the entire story and how it might play out, as ESPN is in a very difficult situation. The saga initially started in July 2020 when Deadspin received four one-minute video clips from an anonymous source, reportedly showing Rachel Nichols in her hotel room and disparaging another employee. Deadspin did not publish the clips, and the Deadspin story by Kyron Phillips advised that nothing in the video showed Nichols to be saying anything that could be construed as either being a backstabber or a phony ally. The Deadspin article outlined that the video recording came from a feed which was set up in Nichols' room to allow remote filming of her show, The Jump, whilst she was in Orlando. The feed was received at ESPN headquarters in Bristol. Rather than alerting Nichols that her video stream was still live or simply shutting the feed off, a unidentified ESPN employee began to record the video feed on a phone, cut it up, and disseminated it to others in the company. When the story was published by Deadspin, ESPN responded by issuing the following statement. We are extremely disappointed about the leak of a private conversation. It's indefensible and an intrusion on Rachel's privacy. ESPN went on to advise in their statement, as for the substance of the conversation, it is not reflective of our decision making on staffing assignments for the NBA, which has largely been driven by circumstance of the pandemic. The second part of the statement was in response to Maria Taylor being appointed as the NBA host of Countdown and Nichols being moved into the role of sideline reporter in place of Doris Burke. The story then sat idle, but the fuse was lit and then blew up on the 4th of July when the New York Times released a detailed story outlining the acrimony at ESPN. The Times had obtained the entire 20-minute video recording of Nichols and interviewed a number of current and former employees regarding the situation. The Times report outlined that at the time of the recording, Nichols had just arrived in Florida and was told by executives that Taylor would host the coverage during the NBA Finals. Nichols discussed her career on a phone call on July 13, 2020 with Adam Mendelsohn, the longtime advisor of Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James, and James' agent, Rich Paul. Nichols was speaking with Mendelsohn to request an interview with James and his Lakers teammate Anthony Davis, whom Paul also represents. During the conversation, she also sought advice from Mendelsohn because she believed her bosses were advancing Taylor's career at her expense. During the conversation, Nichols expressed her frustration. I just want them to go somewhere else. It's in my contract. By the way, this job is in my contract in writing, Nicholson told Mendelsohn, referring to hosting coverage during the NBA Finals. This quote came a few minutes after her saying ESPN was, quote, feeling the pressure about racial diversity. She goes on to say, they didn't ask Reese Davis to go be a sideline reporter so she can have his job. They asked a girl. Later in the conversation, Nichols and Mendelsohn went on to discuss the culture at ESPN headquarters. Those same people who are like generally white conservative male Trump voters is part of the reason I've had a hard time at ESPN, Nichols said during the conversation. I basically finally just outworked everyone for so long that they had to recognize it. I don't want to then be a victim of them trying to play catch up for some damage that affected me in the first place. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to just be nice. Within ESPN, particularly those among the NBA group, felt that the recording showed Nichols to be two-faced, as she'd always been publicly supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement. But when given a chance to support more diversity, she was more worried about protecting her own turf. They were especially upset with what they perceived as Nichols' expression of a common criticism used by white workers in many workplaces to disparage non-white colleagues, this being that Taylor was offered the hosting job only because her race, not because she was the best person for the job. They were also understandably protective of Taylor, who had been subjected to criticism by at least one ESPN employee for speaking out against George Floyd's murder. Simply being a front-facing black woman at this company has taken a toll physically and mentally, Taylor wrote in an email to an ESPN executive obtained by the New York Times. The Times went on to report that Taylor initially told her bosses she would not work the rest of the NBA season, but then decided to host NBA Countdown when ESPN agreed that Nichols would not appear on the show. According to multiple people in the New York Times story, Taylor felt ESPN violated that agreement by allowing Nichols to appear on the show briefly without any interaction with Taylor. The report went on to advise that the situation worsened as the on-air talent discussed if they would refuse to appear on the show due to the situation. A pre-show call with Taylor and the other commentators, Jalen Rose, Adrian Wojnarowski, and Jay Williams, as well as NBA Countdown staff members, had turned acrimonious, with ESPN president Jimmy Pitaro having several phone conversations to try to help smooth things over. In response to questions from the New York Times, Nichols said she was frustrated at the time of the recording and was unloading to a friend about ESPN's process, not about Maria. But she added, "My own intentions in the conversation and the opinions of those in charge at ESPN are not the sum of what matters here. If Maria felt the conversation was upsetting, then it was, and I was the cause of that for her." Nichols said she reached out to Taylor to apologize through text and phone calls. Maria has chosen not to respond to those offers, which is completely fair and a decision I respect, Nichols said. Taylor declined to comment to the New York Times. The fallout from the New York Times story has been swift. Nichols was removed from NBA Finals coverage where she was to work as a sideline reporter and replaced by Malika Andrews. Nichols issued an on-air apology at the start of her daily TV show, The Jump, which was taken off the air for a day. Others, such as Clay Travis, seem to take delight that Nichols has seemingly been caught out and that she could now be a victim of cancel culture. Travis went on Fox and Friends and was beaming as he said,
year ago when she was inside the NBA bubble, Rachel Nichols did not know her home camera there in the hotel room was on and had a conversation about being replaced by Maria Taylor, a black woman, and said the reason why she was losing her job was because of ESPN's issues with diversity, implying quite clearly that Maria Taylor was getting her job because of the color of Maria Taylor's skin. Now, what's ironic about this is Rachel Nichols has always been super woke publicly. She praised the NBA over the disastrous decision to move the All-Star game out of Charlotte, North Carolina, over a transgender bathroom bill. She has lectured the rest of the American sporting public for a long time about diversity and inclusion issues. But then behind closed doors, suddenly she appears to be something that she has claimed not to be, and/or the hypocrisy finally reveals itself, which is, as you guys know, many of these super woke white people love the idea of diversity and inclusion as long as their own jobs aren't impacted by that diversity and inclusion push. And this is what's blown up on Rachel Nichols. It's a huge mess for ESPN. And honestly, we're not sure if she's going to be able to continue working at the network.
This situation has put ESPN's president, Jimmy Pitaro, in a very uncomfortable position. One of his main mandates when he took over ESPN from John Skipper in March 2018 was to stop ESPN being perceived as being too left-leaning. To this end, during his tenure, several personalities such as Jemele Hill, Dan Le Batard left the network as they bristled at being restrained from being allowed to speak on social issues. In addition, Jemele Hill and Michael Smith were both replaced by a more traditional sports center. ESPN has responded poorly to the story since it broke in 2020. ESPN has declined to say whether any employees were disciplined, and Nichols said that she was told that the content of her conversation did not warrant any discipline. The only person known to be punished was Kayla Johnson, a digital video producer who told ESPN Human Resources that she had sent the video to Taylor. Johnson was suspended for 2 weeks without pay and then was later given a less desirable task at work and recently left ESPN. Compare this investigation and punishment with Adnan Virk, who leaked baseball secrets. Adnan had worked at ESPN for 9 years as a studio host who was terminated in February 2019 after ESPN determined that he had divulged what it considered proprietary information about the network's baseball coverage to a sports media writer. If any company should understand the seriousness of recording an employee without their knowledge, it should be ESPN. Their former employee, Erin Andrews, was awarded $55 million from a Nashville hotel chain when, while on assignment for ESPN, she was recorded through a peephole in her hotel room, which was subsequently disseminated on the internet in 2009. ESPN appears to be aware of the danger with this. The New York Times story reported that multiple former ESPN employees, including a former executive, said that the company executives expressed fear of a lawsuit from Nichols and that Disney ESPN parent company became heavily involved due to this fear. Notice in the New York Times story, it outlines, "It is not clear why her camera was on, but most people at ESPN believe that Nichols using new technology during the pandemic did not turn it off properly. It was effectively the remote pandemic version of a hot mic incident." Former ESPN contributor Amin Elhassan had plenty to say about this theory on Tuesday during his appearance on the Dan Le Batard show with Stu Gotts. He savaged the idea of Nichols struggling to use new technology during the pandemic, stating that this is bull bleep. Bull bleep. Rachel knows how to use it. Jamel Hill asked El Hassan if he was suggesting that something nefarious had taken place. You're goddamn right I am, El Hassan advised. He then went on to explain how the recording app was able to be turned on remotely from ESPN headquarters. El Hassan went on to advise that it felt like ESPN really dragged their feet on the investigation over the last 9 months, as it did not seem like a priority to figure out who had violated Nichols' privacy. El Hassan, Le Batard, and Jamel Hill all agreed that it was a very ESPN type move to suspend Kayla Johnson, the lowest level employee, who essentially only was informing her friend about the existence of this video instead of going after the person that actually recorded the video. I'll include a link to this conversation below. It's by far the best discussion I've seen on this subject in comparison to the press box on The Ringer, which really glossed over the fact of how the recording might have been nefariously obtained, and it got some facts wrong as well in terms of their podcast seemed to indicate that Taylor won the job outright from Nichols versus the job being taken away from Nichols. They really just did not outline that very well when they did their podcast, which is one of the reasons I feel it's important to tell the full entire story as well. People like Travis Clay, who aren't telling the full story as well, just delighting in the fact that they feel that Rachel Nichols has been called out. So the real question now is, what does ESPN do, or what does Jimmy Pitaro do? Maria Taylor's contract ends at Game 6 of the NBA Finals. There are rumors that she might go to NBC. If you let her go, ESPN will have an extremely bad look, as they will have been deemed not to have supported a black employee when another employee has insinuated that she got her job as ESPN needed a black person in a high-profile position. But on the other hand, you have the difficult situation with Rachel Nichols. You have a person that was potentially spied on unbeknownst to her, and this information has been used to damage. It's questionable whether this damage is able to be repaired or not. If she'll be able to continue on the jump and return to NBA Countdown if Maria Taylor leaves. If her career is truly damaged, then ESPN could be looking at a nasty Aaron Andrews type lawsuit, because this was caused potentially by her being recorded unbeknownst to her. Ultimately, ESPN and Disney will do what they always do, as their famous fish Dory just keeps swimming. They'll just keep moving forward and powering on. But it is interesting that one of the main points made by the high-profile Rachel Nichols, who's in the crosshairs right now, the main point was how crappy their history is on diversity and on women as well. It's well documented for all to see. So, and she is right that ultimately, to try to help improve this record, they decided to replace the girl. So I guess looking forward, if there are continue to be ongoing diversity issues, the one that should have, I guess, her head on a swivel might be Susie Colbert, on Monday Night Countdown. But Reese Davis, he'll certainly be safe because, as Rachel Nichols said, he's a boy. They don't take the jobs away from the boys. But anyway, it's just another idea I wanted to get out there, and thanks for listening. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.